Discover the sinister rules of survival at a haunted lodge in the Smoky Mountains. What is hidden? The Reynolds family's dream of a peaceful mountain escape started crashing the moment they turned onto the narrow, dimly lit road of Whispering Pines Lodge. Jamie, gripping the wheel with clammy hands, felt the chill creep in not just from the breezy air, but from the stories whispered about this place, tales of families who vanished without a trace. Their laughter in the back seat felt forced, nervous. Mia, 11, and Lucas, 8, stirred restlessly, their excitement tempered by an unplaceable apprehension. Jamie shot a glance at Mark. His taut jaw signaled his own unease. When they arrived, shadows flickered against the lodge's weathered wood, moonlight twisting into eerie shapes. Each step inside produced a creak that resonated like a scream echoing through the emptiness. The musty scent of aged wood hung heavy in the air, mingling with something darker, more stale. The lodge seemed alive, breathing dread over them. With each scrape of nails on the walls, Jamie felt the weight of invisible eyes upon them, telling them to turn back. As they set their bags down, the family portrait on the wall caught Mia's eye. It hung askew, eyes glaring from the painted figures, almost pleading with them to leave. But before she could voice her discomfort, the portrait jerked upright as if guided by a ghostly hand. Mark chuckled, rolled his eyes. Just the house settling. But Mia's heart raced, and Lucas's smile faded, replaced by a hesitant frown. They stifled their doubts as they sat down for dinner, shadows dancing menacingly on the walls, whispering secrets too horrific for the daylight. Just before bed, Lucas discovered a loose floorboard, and curiosity pulled him down to a hidden crawl space brimming with dust and dread. The journal pages he uncovered fluttered in the chill, each word dripping with terror accounts of families lost, disappearing indiscriminately. Mia's blood ran cold, but Lucas wanted adventure. A wrong choice spiraled into chaos as they disturbed something buried deep within the lodge, something that didn't want to be found. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Morning light brought no solace. The gravel where their car had been was barren. Mother and father fractured in panic. Their only escape was thick with treacherous terrain, wild and insurmountable, inspiring visions of nightmares as they contemplated their fate. Just as despair crept in, Paul, the neighbor, approached with a smile sharper than a knife blade. His allure sent a chill through Jamie. His kindness felt rehearsed, the twisted familiarity unsettling. Stick with me, I know this place, he winked, but his grin only amplified the feeling of dread. Shadows twisted and curled around the family's growing fears. Darkness brewed outside the walls, menace swelling as they unearthed the lodge's sinister truths, each ghostly echo bearing witness to betrayal and horror. Whispers grew louder, clawing at Jamie's sanity, intimate truths about the place entwined with their very souls. She gripped her children tighter, heart pounding with a realization that trusting the wrong person here could erase them forever. Panic surged as the journal's last lines screamed in her mind, the words mocking them in a chorus of cold whispers. In this lodge, everyone is hiding something. What other dreadful secrets lay buried here? What would happen when the cursed truths finally clawed their way to the surface? The air thickened with tension as Jamie stared at Paul, trying to read his intentions while a wave of nausea threatened to consume her. The words from the journal echoed in her ears, every family vanished, nothing left behind. Lucas tugged at her sleeve, wide-eyed and fearful. Can we go home? He whispered, barely audible over the rustling trees. We will, honey. Just stay close, Jamie replied, forcing a calm that was nowhere to be found. Mark was pacing, the floorboards warping under his burden. Let us go check on the car again, he suggested, his voice strained. Maybe we can find a signal. Paul's smile widened, a glimmer of something predatory flickering in his gaze. That car's not getting out anytime soon. I'd stick together. You might find out that you're better off with me. Against her better judgment, Jamie felt the knot in her stomach tighten. Their only choice seemed to hinge on this stranger, and that realization made her skin prickle. Mia shuffled ahead, casting longing looks back at Jamie. "Can we explore?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. It seemed innocent, even adventurous, yet something about this place made every instinct scream to run. "Explore how?" Jamie asked sharply, the worry in her voice rising. "What if we got lost?" "Yeah. I found a cool spot by the creek yesterday," Lucas chimed in, unaware of the desperation lurking beneath their mother's words. A flash of doubt surged through her. Would they be safer wandering into the woods or staying near Paul? "There's nothing wrong with exploring. This lodge has secrets, and we should uncover them," Paul interjected. "Follow me, I'll show you something interesting." His grin twisted slightly, no longer friendly but a wretched invitation to the unknown. A chill brushed against Jamie's neck. They had already disturbed something, and the last thing she wanted was to provoke whatever else surrounded them. But the kids were now drawn in, and her will faded against their eager faces. "Fine," she relented, bow rising in her throat. "But you all stay together." They ventured outside, the trees looming like ancient sentinels. Paul guided them around, leading them deeper into the shadows where the light barely touched the ground. Underfoot, the earth felt wrong, almost like it was swallowing the sound of their footsteps. Gnarled branches overhead screeched against one another with the slightest gust, weaving together a symphony of ominous whispers. With each step, Jamie felt a sinister pulse from their surroundings, as if the woods were vibrating with a life of their own. They arrived at a recess in the earth wrapped in creeping vine and thorn. Jamie's heart sank as Paul leaned forward, brushing his fingers over a moss-covered door that blended seamlessly with the ground. "Here's the first rule of Whispering Pines. You see this door? It's what remains of the wilderness that consumed many in these woods. Not all who enter come back." He pulled the door ajar, the rusted hinges groaning like a wounded animal. A stale gust wafted out, thickening the air with a musty scent that reeked of decay. "Yeah, right," Lucas shouted, enthusiasm contrasted sharply with fear. "What's behind it?" Jamie reached for Lucas, but he was already pressed against the door, eager to peek inside. "Stop! Get back!" The door creaked open wider, and silence reigned for a heartbeat before an icy wind surged, sweeping around them. Shadows flickered, and something darker loomed just beyond, waiting for the bold or the foolish. In that moment, Jamie understood deeply there was a reason families had disappeared here, and they were teetering on the edge of becoming the next chapter in this cursed lodge's story. "Do you hear that?" Mia trembled, her voice breaking through the heavy stillness. And then, from the abyss, a low, ghastly whisper slithered through the crack, beckoning them to uncover more. Who's there?" The darkness answered, and Jamie's heart dropped. That voice was familiar. What were they about to unearth in the dark? Or maybe who? Jamie felt her breath hitch as the whisper crept closer, slithering through the air and curling around their hearts. It was a voice she hadn't heard in years, yet it resonated deep within her, a cruel reminder of things best left in the past. "Mom?" Lucas called out innocently, squinting into the blackness that seemed to stretch endlessly beyond the door. Shadows flickered again, warping like broken reflections on glass, and for a second, Jamie thought she saw a figure tall and gaunt looming in the darkness. "Get away from there!" Mark's voice cut through the tension, snapping Jamie from her reverie. He stepped forward, urgency tight in his tone. "We need to leave. Now." Paul chuckled softly, a sound so hollow it sent a shiver down Jamie's spine. "Leaving? But you're already here." He gestured with a flourish toward the door. "Why deny the family reunion? Isn't that what you came for? The truth about your own?" Mia shook, her small frame trembling like a leaf. "I want to go home," she whispered, her eyes darting around as if expecting the unseen being to emerge. Jamie's instinct screamed for escape, but her children were caught in a web spun by Paul's manipulative charm. "Let us step back," she urged, steadying her voice. "Together." As they shuffled back, the door swung slightly wider, and the wretched stench of decay intensified like something long dead but not yet put to rest. Jamie's heart raced, her instincts clamoring louder. "We shouldn't be here," she muttered, casting desperate glances around. When she noticed the symbols carved into the doorframe twisted, grotesque shapes that seemed to writhe and move in the poor light. "What are those?" Lucas whispered, gripping Mia's hand tighter. "Just old marks," Paul replied too quickly, but there was a glint of something unholy behind his eyes. "Old marks?" "They look like warnings," Mark said, suspicion sharpening his features. "We shouldn't," the whisper returned, stronger now, clawing at the fraying edges of Jamie's sanity. "Help me, was it her imagination? Or did the air shift?" The temperature dropped, and she felt a familiar chill crawling up her spine. "Lucas, Mia, stay close." "Mom, it sounds like Grandma," Mia murmured, wide-eyed, staring at the door as if it were a portal of lost dreams. "No, honey, it can't be," Jamie replied sharply, her mind racing. Grandma had died years ago, and this place was a trap. A snare designed to ensnare the unwary. "Just the lodge playing tricks," Paul said, his tone silkier now, almost comforting. "The woods have stories, after all. Family stories. All you need to do is listen." Mark scowled at Paul, his jaw tight with protective instinct. "We're leaving. Now." Paul shrugged, but his smile sharpened, teeth glimmering in the twilight. "That's a shame. You can't leave until the door closes. Think of what you might learn if you listen a bit longer." Before Jamie could protest further, Paul stepped forward, eyes gleaming with something other than kindness. It was a predator-esque gaze, calculating and ravenous. "No!" Jamie shouted, panic igniting like wildfire. She grabbed Lucas and Mia, pulling them back while Mark pushed against Paul, the two colliding like thunder and lightning, but the door jerked wider. The whispers swirled around them, twisting into incoherent cries, longing for release or vengeance, she couldn't tell which. Shadows writhed and pulsed, a tangible force dragging at their ankles. "Stop! Run!" Jamie cried, adrenaline surging as she yanked at her children, pulling them towards the safety of the woods. But the darkness beckoned, a siren song of family and familiarity. They were not just fighting Paul, they were battling an unseen tide, a pull towards secrets buried and long forgotten. As they turned to flee, there came a sudden thud from behind. The door had slammed shut, and a different kind of silence engulfed them, one that felt heavy and thick, saturated with dread. In that moment, Jamie understood. They were not just trapped here with Paul, they had become part of Whispering Pines, a place where memories twisted into nightmares, and shadows laughed when you thought you were safe. "Mom!" Lucas whimpered, his tiny voice barely breaking the oppressive stillness. Jamie knew they couldn't stay on this cursed ground. But as she searched for a path away to escape the suffocating grip of the unknown, her heart sank. They were being watched. What did Paul want from them? What truth lay behind that door? And more importantly, how would they survive both the woods and the man who held their worst fears? The wind howled through the trees, a mournful symphony that amplified the shadows lurking at the edge of Jamie's sight. Her heart hammered in her chest, pulsing with fear as she pulled Lucas and Mia closer to her. The woodland felt alive, like it held secrets of its own, dark, terrible secrets waiting to be unearthed. "Please, let us just go." Mia's voice trembled, high and thin. Panic surged through Jamie, a desperate clawing at her insides. "Stay behind me," she whispered fiercely, her protective instinct taking over. Mark, standing guard before them, glared daggers at Paul. "We're not playing games anymore." "What is this place?" Mark demanded, fists clenched. Paul's smile widened, a predator revealing its sharpest teeth. "All places have stories, Mark. Whispering Pines just has the most interesting ones. You might call it a tapestry woven with truths." Jamie's gut twisted. A tapestry? More like a trap. The stench of decay still lingered, and the whispers curled around them like tendrils of smoke. "Mom, look!" Lucas pointed, eyes as wide as saucers, his small frame vibrating with fear. At the base of a twisted oak, Jamie saw something faintly glowing, a symbol etched into the bark that mirrored the grotesque carvings on the door. It pulsed with malevolence, vibrant against the dark. Just markings of the past, Paul said dismissively. A reminder of who lived here once, and what they needed to keep hidden. No! Jamie felt bile rise in her throat, sensing a connection too terrifying to acknowledge. Each mark, each symbol, it was a history drenched in sadness. She turned to the woods behind them. We can't stay. We have to find a way out. But as she began to back away, an unnatural force pulled at her bones, urging her to turn around and face the door once more. The shadows grew denser, twisting and swirling like smoke, tugging at the edges of her mind. It felt more than just a place. It was alive, and it was watching. Mom! Lucas cried, clinging to her leg like a lifeline. What is happening? Don't look! Focus on me! Jamie shouted, fear lacing her voice, desperation clawing at her throat. In that moment, she felt a sharp wind whip around them, and a cacophony of voices echoed through the trees, a symphony of longing, malice, and despair. Let us go! Mark's voice pierced through the noise, and he gathered them under his protective wing, wrenching them away from Paul's scrutinizing gaze. This way! They stumbled through the underbrush, branches clawing at their clothes, desperation driving them onward. But with each frantic step, Jamie could feel a barrier pressing back the further they got. An unseen force resisted their escape, an invisible wall that pinned them in place, forcing them back toward the heart of the darkness. Look! Mia gasped, pointing to another symbol shimmering on a nearby rock. It was dark and pulsating, as if it had a life of its own. It's watching us. We're okay, but before Jamie could finish, the ground trembled as if responding to Mia's instincts. Tree branches bent unnaturally, and more whispers clawed at her ears. It's not just the lodge, they're everywhere. Paul's laughter echoed behind them, a sound woven with glee and malice. Why run from what's calling you home? As the shadows thickened around them, Jamie felt a tightening grip on her soul. The woods seemed to breathe, exhaling secrets that slithered into her thoughts, indecipherable but draped in power. Stay together! Mark shouted, but the chant laced through the air. Help me seemed to snare Lucas and Mia, tugging at their small hearts. What do we do? Jamie shouted, terror welling up, her pulse pounding in her ears. In that fragile space, where the lines of family and horror blurred, Jamie's mind raced. What could they possibly do to escape? They had to find a way through the trees, but what if the trees were alive? What if escape was a lie? The whispers swirled, enticing them back, and Jamie felt the weight of 1,000 eyes boring into her, beckoning her to remember why had they really come here. The urgency peaked. In a flash, Jamie realized the answer was hidden. The key right under their feet. But as she leaned down, the shadows churned violently, thrashing as if guarding their secrets fiercely. As the darkness pressed in, she turned to Mark, desperation spilling from her lips. We need to pierce the truth of this place, whatever it takes. We have to break the spell. But would they survive long enough to find out what lay beyond that ominous door? What lay hidden in the depths of whispering pines? A new whisper broke through the chaos, chilling her to the bone. You're too late. Would their past come back to claim them? Or was something sinister bound to the forest they couldn't yet comprehend? The darkness swallowed them whole, wrapping around their bodies like a serpent. Jamie couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was alive, breathing, pulsing with a hunger of its own. She tightened her grip on Lucas and Mia, clutching them like they were the only light in a sea of shadows. Keep moving! Mark's voice was a rasp, hoarse from the terror permeating the air. They dashed forward, dodging branches that reached for them like grasping hands. Jamie could hear Lucas's ragged breaths behind her, and it broke her heart. Mom, I'm scared. Lucas whimpered, and the words cut deeper than any knife. Me too, sweetheart, she choked out, guilt clawing at her insides. She had brought them here, had dragged them into this nightmare, and she couldn't let go now. There was no room for thoughts of despair. They stopped suddenly as another low rumble tore through the ground. A chill wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the faint echoes of a child's laughter, wrong, twisted, evolving into high-pitched cackles. It coursed through Jamie's veins, making her bones ache. "Run!" she yelled, panic surging like an electric shock. But the world felt off balance, as if gravity tugged them back. Mia clutched Jamie's arm with little strength, the weight of fear bringing her to a nearly catatonic state. With each frantic step, a thick fog slithered from the underbrush, coiling around their legs like a snake, pulling them back. Shadows danced just out of reach, shaping into figures that shifted and shuffled, always just behind their sight. "Don't look, don't look!" Jamie cried. She felt something dragging on her consciousness, whispering secrets she dared not hear. The urge to turn around, to see what watched them from the depths of the forest, grew unbearable. "We can't go back!" Mark shouted over the cacophony of voices. "This way!" He led them deeper into the trees, deeper into the unknown. Suddenly, the sinister whispers stopped, and an eerie silence enveloped them, making each breath feel like a transgression. Jamie strained her ears, the stillness pressing against her chest. Then, the ground heaved violently again, throwing them off balance. "What is this place?" Mia's voice trembled like a leaf in a storm, the innocence of her questions slicing through the thick atmosphere. "It's a nightmare," Jamie whispered, echoing her own fear. "But we can't let it take us." Before she could take another step, a shriek erupted from behind them. It wasn't human. It was primal, dripping with rage and despair. It broke the silence like glass shattering on concrete. "Run!" Mark's voice, stripped of hesitation, erupted with urgency. They fled, adrenaline pumping, but the forest had changed. Roots entangled their feet, pulling at them, inviting them to trip, to fall, to succumb. Jamie could see the glint of something hidden in the underbrush, a dark pool shimmering faintly. "Look!" Lucas shouted, pointing. She turned and saw it, a mirror dusty and cracked. It stood alone among the trees, beckoning with ghostly currents. It held an image that morphed, transforming into their reflections, twisted and grisly. "What if it shows us what we fear?" Mia's eyes widened. "We don't need to look," Jamie shouted, desperately trying to pull them away. But deep down, a sick curiosity knotted in her chest. As the mirror thrummed, the night itself throbbed in response, dark fingers reaching out to caress the surface. Each heartbeat resonated like a war drum. "Mom?" Lucas's gaze flickered between the mirror and Jamie. Shadows played on Mia's face, fears swirling like storm clouds. "Run!" Mark shouted, but the command felt strained, each shout slowly losing its strength. The air crackled, and suddenly, the ground beneath them rippled, shifting like a living creature. Jamie stumbled, pulling the kids close as she glared at the mirror, injustice and fate tightly woven together. Would facing that reflection entrap them, or could it reveal the way out? As if in answer, the mirror's surface began to swirl, images flashing like the awful echo of their own despair, offering glimpses of choices made long ago. "Mom!" Lucas screamed, tears spilling down his cheeks, his voice echoing her own desperation. "What if we become part of it?" A flicker, a shadow passed through the mirror as Jamie's resolve wavered, fear wrapping around her heart like cold metal. Could they truly escape the past, or was Whispering Pines binding them tighter than ever? A chilling wind howled through the trees, shaking leaves from the branches like bones rattling in a forgotten grave. Jamie's heart raced as she felt their grip on sanity tighten. The mirror pulsated, its surface now a maelstrom of nightmarish images, inviting and horrifying at once. "Jamie!" Mark's voice cut through her daze. She turned to see him struggling to clear the roots tangling around their feet, panic etched on his face. "We have to go. Now!" The earth beneath them bucked again, as if disturbed by unseen forces. Jamie shook her head violently, trying to dispel the terrifying images from the mirror that threatened to tear apart her will. "Look away! We can't let it in!" she shouted, yanking at the children. But the pulsating light from the mirror seemed to reach for them like a hungry predator, demanding their attention. "Mom, it feels like it knows us!" Lucas cried out, eyes wide with terror, his small body trembling beside her. Mia stood frozen, her gaze still locked on the mirror's chaos. "What if it's showing us a way out?" she whispered, as if the words themselves could summon salvation. No! Jamie shouted, her instincts screaming. It wants to trap us! Suddenly, a deafening roar erupted from the depths of the woods, drowning out all rational thought. The ground split beneath them like a mouth ready to swallow them whole. Jamie felt the weight of dread crushing down, every fiber of her being urging her to flee. Mark! Grab Mia, let us go! She shouted, pulling Lucas along, ignoring the sharp pain of branches lashing against her skin. They stumbled away from the mirror, the shadows stirring in response, hissing like whips as they slithered through the underbrush. With the presence of the forest closing in around them, the laughter echoed again, twisted and mocking, a taunt that ignited Jamie's fear. The further they ran, the more the whispers came alive, words wrapping around them, seeping into their minds a language of darkness that promised salvation but delivered only despair. This way! Mark yelled, spotting a thin path through the thickening trees. They pushed forward, fighting against the grip of the unseen horrors that lingered just out of sight. But Jamie kept hearing the dulcet echoes of her name trailing behind, whispering temptations to look back. And then they reached it, a grotesque log cabin appearing out of nowhere, aged and decrepit. Vines choked the walls, and the boarded windows bore no remnants of light. It loomed like an evil sentinel in the night. Should we check inside? Mia's voice faltered, laden with uncertainty. No! Jamie could barely catch her breath, her instincts screaming at her. The cabin felt far more alive and sinister than the forest surrounding them. Just then, the roof creaked ominously, a heavy whisper emanating from the cabin, a deep yearning call, familiar and foreign all at once. Mom, what if it has the answers? Lucas pleaded, his voice trembling. Or the end of us, Jamie replied, terror coiling tighter around her as she fought the pull of the cabin's mystery. We can't risk it, we have to keep moving. But then the ground shifted once more, and the atmosphere changed. An unnatural calm descended, urging them toward the cabin. Listen, Mark said slowly. The whispers grew softer, a melodic hum that entwined with the night air, evoking a sense of dreadful curiosity. What if it's hiding something? What if we find a way out of all of this? Mia pressed, desperation creeping into her tone. Jamie felt her resolve wavering, the mirror's images still haunting her thoughts. The cabin, with its gnarled door ajar, looked like a welcoming maw, waiting to devour whatever stumbled inside. Instead of running, she felt drawn toward it, a siren's call mixing with her own rising dread. What if we face it? Jamie whispered, her voice trembling. The weight of unanswered questions hung heavy in the air. Was facing the darkness the only way to escape it? The glow of the mirror flickered in her mind. Could it show them more than terror? As a choice unfolded before them, a crack in the fate tethering them to the haunted night, Jamie could sense the inevitability of their decision. Would the cabin hold the answers they sought, or would it seal their fate forever? The chilling realization crept in. Sometimes the most terrifying truths hide behind doors that beckon you closer. The cabin loomed, undulating in the shadows, whispering darker secrets with every breath. Mom, I feel it, something is waiting, Lucas muttered, clutching Jamie's hand like a lifeline. His wide eyes darted toward the door, drawn by an unseen force. We can't stay here, Jamie said, panic spilling over. Her mind raced. They couldn't afford to make a mistake. Every second spent contemplating the cabin could be their last. But the ether around them shifted. The moon cast just enough light to see how the vines danced across the cabin's entrance, moving as if alive. It was both mesmerizing and horrifying. Maybe we could just peek, Mia whispered, her voice almost melodic against the oppressive atmosphere. What if we find something safe? Something that can help? Mark shook his head violently. No way. What if it's like the mirror? It only shows darkness. The air thickened, electrifying their nerves with palpable tension. Jamie's heart pounded. She felt as if 100 eyes were fixed on her. It was suffocating. Jamie, let us just check the perimeter, Mark insisted, gesturing to the slumping walls and splintered wood. The tension twisted into something more dangerous, the pressing desire to run conflicting with the need to know. What's that sound? Lucas craned his head, listening closely. Like a low rumble, something inside the cabin began to stir. A deep sigh echoed a creak that reached into Jamie's bones. She stepped back, the instinct to flee curving into dread. Mia, hold Lucas! Jamie ordered, her voice fraying at the edges. She edged toward the door, caught in a vicious mix of terror and curiosity. As she approached, she could see the door sway slightly, almost beckoning her to enter. The whispering grew louder, obscuring all rhythms of nature around them, drawing her closer until she could feel the chill streaming from the threshold. Don't! Mark cried out, his arms shooting forward, but it was too late. Jamie reached for the handle, an icy pulse shooting through her fingertips. She flinched but pressed down. The door gave way with a muffled creak, revealing darkness within. It yawned wide as if it were exhaling an intoxicating breath and invitation. Wait! Mia screamed as Lucas squeezed her arm tighter. Don't go in, Jamie! But Jamie stepped inside, heart pounding like a drum, echoing in the trepidation-drenched air. The interior reeked of decay and neglect, shadows loomed heavy, and piles of dust fluttered like restless spirits. The walls were lined with faded photographs, faces distorted like memories torn from pages. Eyes appeared to follow her, an audience held captive by despair. What is this place? She muttered, stepping further in, entranced despite her instincts. Jamie, please! Mark's voice quaked behind her, urgency threading his words. Let us find another way. But the floorboard creaked ominously beneath Jamie's weight, as if it too felt the dark presence surfacing. Suddenly, a faint light flickered from a small table across the room, illuminating a tattered journal that lay open, its pages fluttering like whispers carried by the night breeze. At that moment, a chill swept through her, a frigid brush that coiled around her heart. The whispers escalated into cacophony, loud and desperate, drowning out her rational thought. The journal seemed to call, each turn of the page drawing her closer, like a moth to a flame. Jamie! Get out of there! Mark shouted, voice laced with terror, but it sounded distant, almost lost. The flickering light pulsed, sending shadows spiraling around the room. She instinctively reached for the journal, her hands trembling, caught in its charms and trials. But as her fingers brushed the yellowed edge of the page, the cabin shuddered violently, and she heard dark laughter woven into the whispers, suffocating and taunting. Mark! She screamed, heart racing, the weight of realization crashing into her. They hadn't found answers, they had stumbled into their worst nightmare. With every flicker of the light, the shadows writhed like serpents, closing in on her. She had to escape, but could anyone ever truly leave this hell? And then, the door slammed shut behind them, locking them inside the haunting grasp of the cabin. As darkness swallowed the last remnants of light, Jamie felt the dread wrap around her like a shroud. What was hidden in the depths of this cursed place, and would they be able to uncover it before it consumed them whole? The air inside the cabin became thick, a living entity that quivered with unspeakable dread. A low hum thrummed through the walls, a resonant heartbeat as if the cabin itself was awakening. Jamie's heart raced, a frantic tempo matched only by the whispers that now screamed in a twisted harmony. Jamie, come on! Let us get out! Mark's shout turned desperate, panic layering his voice. He pressed against the door, but it held fast, a cruel iron barrier sealing their fate. Do you hear that? We have to leave now! But the journal lay invitingly before her, that light pulsating like a beacon in a sea of dark. She felt the pull, an invitation sewn into every taunting flicker. The shadows around her danced, enveloping her legs, pulling her deeper into their embrace. Mia's breath hitched as she watched Jamie, her eyes darting like fireflies trapped in a jar. Let us stick together, she urged, her voice trembling. We can figure this out. Yet the journal began to whisper, the pages turning back and forth, the words swirling in her mind like a haunting incantation. Jamie, the voice murmured, seductive and sweet, find the truth. Shut it. Just shut up. Mark shouted, his fists clenching as he pushed against the door again, desperation bleeding into anger. With each turn of the page, the cabin seemed to rumble in response, its lifeblood flowing through the very wood. Something ancient writhed within, and Jamie could feel its malevolence seeping into her bones. She struggled to pull herself away, but the call was insistent. It promised answers, clarity, a path through the impending horror. "Jamie! Do you see those pictures?" Mia whispered, trembling. "They look like us." She pointed a shaking finger at the distorted faces lining the walls, figures frozen in agony and terror. "Don't look at them!" Mark shouted, but it was too late. Jamie's eyes locked onto a particular photograph, its eyes burning with a familiar desperation. Was it her? No, it couldn't be. But as she strained to focus, the realization sunk in deep. These faces weren't just strangers. They were remnants of victims trapped, forever fought and forgotten in this hellhole. Suddenly, Lucas shrieked, his voice sharp and shattered. "The door! It's breathing!" Everyone turned, horror seizing them as the door warped, bulging outward like a grotesque mouth, threatening to inhale them whole. The shadows thickened, coiling around Jamie, tightening like a noose. "Get away from the journal, Jamie!" "Now!" Mark shouted, moving to grab her arm. But as he reached for her, a scream echoed through the cabin, as if the very walls clawed for attention. Jamie hesitated, stepping back as if she were being pulled in two directions, a life filled with terrifying uncertainty, or the promise of sinister revelations. Jerked back into reality, she dropped her gaze to the journal again, and before she could think, she ripped it free from the table. The space shattered with cacophonous laughter, a wild symphony of madness erupting around them. "What did you do?" Mark gasped, horror painting his features. Glimpses of a chaotic past ignited in her mind, energy humming wildly as the cabin trembled. The shadows shifted, now swirling in an agitated frenzy, converging upon them with a hunger that felt insatiable. "Find the truth," the voice whispered again, and tremors of fear coursed through Jamie. Then, without warning, the journal opened wide on its own, pages flapping like wings, revealing a map scorched like a warning. Lines formed, pointing towards a hidden path buried beneath the cabin. "Where does that lead?" Mia whispered, clinging to Lucas. "I don't know," Jamie breathed, "but if we don't, the floor split beneath them, a thunderous crack echoing in their ears." Time fell away, and everything spiraled into chaos. Laughter echoed, and the shadows undulated, revealing their true form alongside the map's truth. What was hidden below? What terrible secret awaited them? Unraveling the mystery felt like a death sentence caught between the journal's grip and the cabin's ferocious embrace. They faced the heart of madness together. But was the truth even worth knowing? As the floor caved in, swallowing fragments of their despair, Jamie realized freedom might just demand a sacrifice. What would they have to give to unveil the darkness longing to be unleashed? The floor gave way with a deafening roar, the cabin collapsing beneath them as if the very earth wanted to swallow their fears whole. Jamie felt a rush of air as they plummeted into the darkness, tangled together like autumn leaves in a storm. The descent felt endless. Falling through blackness, their screams echoed back at them, warped and sinister. Then, a harsh jolt yanked them to a stop, landing them on damp earth. A surge of cold wrapped around them, and Jamie gasped, her breath mixing with the thick mustiness of the underground. "Everyone okay?" she panted, her heart hammering in her chest. Mia's voice trembled in response. "I think so." "Where are we?" Fists clenched, Mark pushed himself up and brushed dirt off his jeans. "What kind of hell did we just fall into?" The shadows were alive here. Thick, swirling, tendrils slithered at the edges of their vision. Jamie's skin prickled as she noticed the faint outline of stone walls glistening with moisture, their surface marred by what looked like ancient writing. Symbols formed a chaotic tapestry, reflecting some unwritten history of despair and anguish. "Look at that!" Lucas pointed, his wide eyes fixating on a bizarre symbol, a spiked circle surrounded by lines like the rays of a sun. It pulsed dimly, as if in response to Jamie's glazed stare. "Is it alive? What do the pages say?" Mia inquired, trying to pull the journal from Jamie's trembling hands. But the journal lay heavy, its pages quaking slightly. The voice murmured again, insistent. There is more than you can see. Discover the hidden truths deep within. No. Mark shouted, stepping closer, urgency rippling off him. We have to take control. The longer we stay here, the more it tightens around us. Instinctively, Jamie opened the journal. The map blurred around the symbol, revealing cryptic instructions. This isn't just a map, it's a warning, she whispered, heart sinking as words clawed at her consciousness. Sacrifice must be made for passage. What does that even mean? Mia's voice cracked, panic creeping into her tone. The air thickened, heavy with dread and unseen gazes, pressing in from all directions. The shadows danced closer, flickering like hungry flames, and Jamie's pulse quickened. Whatever it means, we need to find a way out, and quick. Maybe the symbols on the walls, Lucas said, nervously tapping the stone. They could guide us. With one shaky breath, Jamie stepped forward. Wait. What if they're traps? Do we have a choice? Mark shot back, desperation glowing in his eyes. We keep running in circles. We need answers. So let us take some risks. As they deliberated, the pulsating symbol seemed to resonate louder, vibrating through the air like a bell tolling doom. Shadows swirled, threatening to envelop the entire chamber, swallowing the faint light left in the journal. Here! Jamie yelled, pointing to an inscription tucked away in a corner. It speaks of guardians keeping secrets, protecting passage. It says laughter erupted all around them, shrill and mocking. They turned, hearts stuttering in terror, but found only darkness. Do you hear that? Mark's voice trembled. What if, Lucas whispered, backing away as the laughter crescendoed. What if we're not alone? I don't want to find out. Mia shouted, eyes darting. What if the sacrifices shut up? Jamie snapped, her instincts taking over. She scanned their surroundings, looking for a way forward. Stop panicking. We need to figure out how to open this passage. But without warning, the catalog of haunting voices erupted, mingling with the shadows. Discover the past to alter the future, they chanted, surreal and vibrant. A sense of purpose began to swell in the air, and Jamie felt drawn to the symbol again. What does that even mean? Mark gasped, backing away as the walls seemed to shift. You're not saying we have to unveil whatever this place wants? Jamie screamed over the din, placing a hand on the symbol. It's now or never. As she pressed against the stone, a rush of energy coursed through her. The laughter fell silent, replaced by a grounding hum that vibrated under their feet. But what lay beyond the unveiled threshold? And what were they truly willing to sacrifice to escape the shadows now closing in around them? In that moment, Jamie understood the depths of their choices would define not only their fate, but the very power that had held them captive. Would they uncover the truth or become another whisper in the darkness? The air around them crackled with anxiety as Jamie pressed her palm against the pulsating symbol. A tremor coursed through the stone, releasing waves of energy that rippled outward, illuminating the underground chamber with an eerie glow. As the shadows recoiled, the laughter dimmed to a whisper, anxiety remorphing into something akin to curiosity. Is it working? Lucas's voice wavered, filled with delicate hope. I think so. Stay close, Jamie replied, determination lifting from the depths of her spirit. The walls shifted, sliding apart to reveal a narrow path lined with shimmering vines that whispered secrets only the haunted could hear. Each step forward felt like an act of rebellion, a rejection of the darkness that had silently consumed so many before them. Mia peered ahead, excitement wavering with fear. What if it leads us out? Or deeper into danger, Mark warned, scanning the edges of their new surroundings. But Jamie's heart raced with a rhythm that promised not dread, but liberation. We don't have any other choice. We have to know. As they stepped toward the passage, the sensation of being watched intensified. A million eyes, not just the ones of the shadows, held their gaze. Remember, we find the truth together. No matter what, Jamie reminded them, her voice steady, holding their familial bond close. The path twisted, leading them down, deeper and deeper into the earth, where light began to fade. Yet the journal in Jamie's grasp pulsated with warmth, guiding them through the thick veil of anxiety clinging to their backs. The words felt more urgent now, a harmony of voices intertwining in a crescendo of untold stories, unfolding like petals in the sun. Suddenly, the ground surged beneath them. Jamie gasped as the air thickened, memories of the lodge over the years fleeing from the shadows. The walls began to close in. "Push!" Mark shouted, determination shimmering in his eyes. They ran together, feet pounding against solid earth, leaving echoes of strife behind. But as they neared a pale flickering light, an unearthly roar resounded, shaking them to their marrow. Paul's laughter, cold and merciless, pierced the air. "You think you can escape? You've only just begun to understand the sacrifice." "Shut up!" Jamie shouted back, her voice breaking, internal resolve hardening. They stumbled into a broader chamber where remnants of forgotten lives lingered, stretching from walls marred by sorrow. Each shadowy figure formed a portrait, flickering memories that shone with faint nostalgia. But then their faces shifted, merging into the reflections of Jamie, Mark, Lucas, and Mia, distorted expressions of anguish. "No!" Jamie cried, shaking her head furiously, as each figure reached out as if to draw her in. The roaring grew louder, but in the heart of her fear, Jamie found something beyond panic. "We have to stand together," she shouted, squeezing her children's hands tighter, rallying them against the tide of despair. In that moment, a realization overcame her. The truth wasn't just what lay ahead, it was woven into their unity, their shared story of courage. "Together, we can break free." "I trust you," Mia said, clutching Lucas's hand, her earlier fear dissolving in the force of Jamie's conviction. Mark nodded, pouring all his resolve into the connection. "Let us finish this." Taking a deep breath, they stepped forward, hands linked, confronting the sinister symbols alive with dread. Jamie cried out, "What do you want from us? What is the sacrifice?" The shadows writhed, then stilled, as a voice echoed clear through the darkness, "The past reveals what was lost. Only through acceptance can you rewrite your fate." Suddenly, the shimmering symbol emitted bright light, enveloping Jamie and her children, transforming despair into warmth, and shadow into light. The air felt electric, alive with the power of their truth. "You cannot escape, you must confront it." Paul's voice reverberated, a desperate plea morphing into something unrecognizable. "Enough!" Jamie cried out, breaking through the darkness that tried to ensnare them again. "We choose love over fear. We will not be trapped." In that decisive moment, light exploded around them, a surge of energy bursting forth as the chamber transformed. Colors danced, casting the dark away, revealing hidden truths long buried. Memories flooded back, their love and connection powerful enough to drown out the shadows. With a final echoing sigh, the darkness receded, unraveling narrow threads of fate, revealing a path that spiraled upward, a pathway out of despair. The journey had nearly reached its end. As they ascended, Jamie held her children close, hearts echoing with hope. They emerged into the cool night air outside the cabin, reality washing over them as the oppressive weight of whispering pines fell away, leaving only the unfinished whispers of forever lost families surrounding them. Hand in hand, Jamie, Mark, Mia, and Lucas gazed at the lodge that had trapped so many souls. "We did it," Mark said softly, "but can we come back?" "Only if we forget," Jamie replied, determination rising. Knowing they carried the stories of those who had perished but now found a way to remember, made her heart feel light. They deconfronted the sinister past, and with each step forward together, they began to write their own story. In that dark place, in that haunted lodge, Jamie realized that they could always rewrite their destiny. Who they were would never be a whisper lost to the shadows again. As they turned from the cursed whispering pines, Mia lifted her chin, eyes bright. "Can we go somewhere fun now, like the fair? And ice cream?" Lucas added. Their laughter echoed into the night, pure and bright, a sound that filled the air like a radiant promise of hope for all who listened. This was their moment to rise, to be more than shadows in a haunted lodge. They were a family, reclaiming their story, unafraid of the whispers that lingered behind them. They had survived. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will send chills down your spine. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this gripping finale.